Avoidants do some weird things when they like you. Now, I know this because I used to be a dismissive avoidant, so I feel like I'm in a unique position to speak to this. Look at this. These are my doors of weirdness. Behind each one of these doors is, you guessed it, a weird behavior exhibited by avoidants. Let's just jump right in and open up door number 1 with preemptive breakup planning. All right, time to embarrass myself. I have done this. Actually, I think I'm actually like the king of doing this. It's November 19th, 2010. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows has just been released in theaters. I know this because I was on a double date with a girl named Cassie and my best friend and his girlfriend. Now, Cassie liked me. I knew she liked me. She knew she liked me. Everyone knew she liked me. But I'm not thinking about Cassie. I'm thinking about how to protect myself, how to ensure that I keep a distance and maintain my independence, my single status. Now, honestly, Cassie did nothing wrong. She was pretty, polite, and quite frankly was a catch I didn't deserve. You see, my plan to maintain my distance from her started the moment I picked her up for the date. She says,
"Wow, you look great, Chris. I'm so excited to see the movie."
To which I say, "Hey, me too, but just to let you know, this is just a friend date. I don't want you to get any ideas." Yes, I literally started the date this way. But that's not the weird part. Here's the weird part. I kept repeating this throughout the entire date, always with a different variation. We're just gonna be friends. This is the most fun I've had with a friend. I'm so happy this isn't like a real date. Little by little, each time I muttered something to that effect, I saw her happiness fade away. What I was doing was simple. I was setting the stage to ensure that nothing serious developed, and if it did develop, I had an easy out to break things off. In other words, it was a preemptive breakup plan. But here's the twist. I was doing it before any relationship had even begun. Think of it like this, a psychological safety net. It ensured that I had an escape route if things got too intense. Now, my approach was always to ensure that we were just going to remain friends. But other dismissive avoidants have come up with countless ways to lay the groundwork for a breakup. Let me know if any of these ring a bell. You have the first trick, which is establishing a no strings attached mindset. So, like I said, this was my go-to. Basically, the dismissive avoidant keeps insisting on keeping things casual. They emphasize that they don't want anything serious. Even if the connection deepens, they'll maintain this stance as a way of keeping the breakup option open. And then you have the second trick, creating emotional distance early on. Right from the beginning, they might subtly create emotional barriers, such as avoiding deep conversations or keeping you at an arm's length. The distance is a way of preparing themselves and you for an eventual separation, even if things are going well. And then you have trick number 3. Sometimes they'll drop hints of future disconnection. They might make offhand comments like, "I'm not good at relationships," or "I don't think this will last," even before anything has really started. Once again, this is something I actually did to Cassie on our date. Then you have trick number 4, creating scenarios that could lead to conflict. They might unconsciously or even consciously create situations that could lead to misunderstandings or arguments, almost as if they're testing how things might fall apart. This preemptive sabotage is a way to control the potential breakup narrative. And then finally, we have referencing past failures. They might frequently bring up past relationships that didn't work out, almost as a warning sign. It's their way of setting expectations low, so if things do go south, it won't be a surprise. This can feel weirdly self-defeating, as they're already preparing for the end before the beginning has even fully unfolded. Now, why is this behavior weird? Well, it's weird because it's the exact opposite of how you would expect someone to treat a person if you liked them. Instead of building a foundation for a strong relationship, they're like laying the groundwork for its eventual demise. Think of it like constructing an exit door before the house is even built. For the person on the receiving end, this can feel confusing and unsettling since the relationship is tinged with an odd sense of doom from the start. But that's not even close to the weirdest thing I've seen avoidants do. Look behind door number 2 with micro gifting. I had to dig deep for this one, but as always, good old Reddit came through. So I stumble across this Reddit post in the avoidant attachment subreddit entitled Reluctance at Receiving Gift. And the person who posted it talks in depth about how avoidants received gifts. Check this out. In my experience, avoidants will often react to gift giving by humoring you, but then they will either 1. Avoid using it, 2. Accidentally break, ruin, or lose it, 3. Secretly give it away, or 4. Buy the exact same thing for themselves and use that instead. That's pretty wild, right? But that's actually not the part that got me. If an avoidant gives a gift, they often downplay it by claiming that they found it or got it for free and ask if you want it or try to hide their vulnerability in some other way. In other words, they're micro-gifting. All right, so wait, what is micro-gifting? Well, this is going to be a little embarrassing, but years ago I was actually invited onto Fox News to talk about micro-cheating. Now, micro-cheating is all about the small breaches of trust in a relationship that don't pass the threshold into an actual physical affair, hence the name micro. Micro-gifting is actually a lot like that. It's where they give you extremely small or obscure gifts that don't really make sense at first glance. These gifts are often symbolic, or as the Reddit person pointed out, the avoidant will literally downplay it in some way. Look at this. These are 3 examples of micro gifts that I've seen avoidants give to their significant others. First we have the found object gift. An avoidant might give you something that they claim to have found or stumbled upon by chance, like a unique rock or a coin or a small trinket. They'll downplay it by saying, I found this and I thought you might like it, rather than framing it as an actual meaningful gift. Then we have the practical yet impersonal gift. They might give you something practical like a new pen and notebook or a keychain with the explanation that they had an extra or they didn't need it. It's something useful, but the way they present it to you makes it almost seem like it was an afterthought, even though it might be something they picked out specifically for you. Next, we have the I got it for free gift. An avoidant might give you a gift and immediately downplay its value by saying something like they got it for free, like a promotional item from work or a sample product. They'll usually say something like, I got this for free. Do you want it? Let's pause here briefly because I actually have some experience in this. I grew up in Texas, and one of the big things that we have every year in Houston is the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. In college, I managed to score some free tickets to this thing, and I actually invited a girl I liked to attend with me. What did I say to convince her? Oh, I got these for free. Why did I frame it that way? Well, I was doing everything in my power to ensure that I couldn't get rejected, so I lessened the impact of the gift on purpose as a way of protecting myself. My fragile ego couldn't handle getting rejected by this person, and I think there's a lesson to that. For avoidants, this need to protect themselves manifests in behaviors like micro-gifting, where they minimize the importance of their gestures to avoid exposing their true feelings. Now, while this approach might feel safer, it can also prevent genuine connection, as the other person may never fully realize the significance behind the gesture. In the end, protecting ourselves too much can actually hinder the relationships we're trying to build. But let's move on to door number 3, the avoidant love language. Let's play a game. Before you see 5 love languages: quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, and acts of service. If you knew nothing but the simple definition of what an avoidant is, what would you expect their love languages to be? Well, most people would probably choose acts of service. Why? Well, actual acts of service are practical and can be done without requiring deep emotional engagement and verbal expression. And since we know avoidants often avoid verbal affirmations and emotional closeness, people might assume they show love through actions that help or support their partner in practical ways, like fixing something, running errands, or doing chores. You ready for the weird part? That's actually wrong. Check this out. I picked up this little tidbit from a popular website run by therapists called Relationship Matters Therapy. In an article about attachment styles and love language, here's what's said. Avoidant dismissive attachment may cherish more quality time or physical touch as their love languages because these seem to require the least amount of verbal expression but still establishes affection and appreciation. To add further credence to this, I actually dug deeper. I ended up on this Reddit thread entitled Ask Avoidants FAQ Receiving Love, Care, and Support. Basically, someone wanted to ask a bunch of questions to avoidants about how how they receive love. It's the first question that they ask on this thread that applies to our discussion. How can someone show they support, love, or care for you? When have you felt most loved and supported? In total, only 11 avoidants answered, which isn't really a lot. But out of those 11, 4 specifically mentioned quality time and physical touch as being their number one factor for how they hope other people show love and care for them. Here's what I find impressive about this. This was completely unprompted. Like, the question wasn't, hey, avoidance, what's your love language? The question was like, how do you wish you receive love and care and things of that nature? And literally almost half of the avoidants, unprompted, said they wanted quality time and physical touch. Now, why is this? And why is this weird? Well, avoidants often struggle with verbal expressions of love and affection, which makes their reliance on physical touch or quality time as their primary love languages somewhat contradictory. I mean, the truth is that these love languages are typically associated with closeness and connection, which avoidants generally shy away from. Let's move on, though. Behind door number 4, we have avoidants engaging in intellectual sparring. Let's pull from page 115 of Attached. Rachel S.F. Heller and Amir Levine write, Mike, who is 27, has spent the last 5 years with someone that he feels is not his intellectual equal. They love each other very much, but there's always an underlying dissatisfaction in Mike's mind about the relationship. He has a lingering feeling that something is missing and that someone is better around the corner. The part I want to key in here is actually in the first sentence of that explanation, the whole intellectual equal part. Okay, so keep that in mind because we're going to circle back around to it. But basically, instead of typical flirtation, avoidants might engage in intellectual sparring or debate with someone they like. This is a way to connect without being emotionally vulnerable, using their intellect as a barrier and a bridge simultaneously. In addition to that, if we reference what I talked about in Attached, we can also infer that avoidants are doing this as a way to distance themselves before things get too serious. By considering themselves better than their partner, they literally set up an escape route out of the relationship. After all, something is missing, right? Maybe they can do better. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. Wait, where does that sound familiar? Oh, right, we talked about that behind door number 1 with the preemptive breakup planning. So what does this actually look like, though? Well, there are typically 3 instances where you're going to see this. The first instance is challenging your views. They might deliberately take a contrary position in discussions, not because they disagree, but because they want to engage with you on a deeper intellectual level. The second is through a playful debate. This could come across as playful teasing or actually an intense debate, which to them is a way of bonding without exposing their emotional side. Then you have respect through challenge. By challenging you, they're subtly showing respect for your intelligence and valuing your opinion, even if it seems like they're being argumentative or distant. All right, let's move on to the next door. Door number 5, creating emotional distance with purpose. Avoidants distance themselves emotionally. This shouldn't come as a shock to anyone. But if an avoidant likes you, they'll do something odd. They're going to emotionally distance themselves from you, but with purpose. This involves deliberately putting up walls or creating distance, not just out of a fear or discomfort, but as a way to test how safe the relationship is or to maintain control over their emotions. Usually you see it happen over the course of 4 stages. You have this subtle testing stage, which is where they might create situations where they pull back emotionally to see if you'll chase after them or respect their space. It's a way of gauging whether you're someone who can handle their need for independence while also caring for them. They'll also have silent check-ins. Despite pulling away, they might keep tabs on you in an indirect way, like liking old social media posts, asking mutual friends about you, or even showing up at places they know you'll be without making direct contact. They'll create opportunities for you to initiate. They might set up scenarios where you're invited to make the first move, like sending a vague text that leaves room for interpretation or mentioning a place they like without directly inviting you. Or they can try reverse support. They might offer help or support in really odd ways, like helping you with something practical or offering advice, but in a way that seems detached. It's their way of connecting without exposing too much of their vulnerability. This behavior isn't really discussed because it's nuanced. It doesn't fit the avoidant profile. It's weird because it's like a blend of pushing you away while also pulling you closer, all done with an underlying hope that you'll somehow decode their intentions. And really, that's the difficult part about all of this weird behavior. Understanding an avoidant's actions require reading between the lines and recognizing that their emotional distance is often a complex dance of protection and connection. I'm not defending them. For many people, the right choice is to turn tail and run from them. But I don't think the right way of looking at them is as if they're less than human. They're not monsters, but sometimes their behavior can be hurtful. While it may seem contradictory, these weird behaviors do reveal their deep desire to connect. It's just that they don't want to lose themselves in the process. The challenge for people in relationships with these individuals lies in seeing past the walls that the avoidants build to the vulnerable person behind them. The vulnerable person who's hoping that you understand them and stick around.